I love the genre of mecha. You know how the saying goes, I dig giant robots, you dig giant robots, chicks dig giant robots. Nice. However, if there's any one mecha series that haunts me due to its abysmal storytelling, it's Gundam Seed. Well, it's not really so much the series itself as it is its fans. You see, I've reviewed Seed, Seed Destiny, Seed Freedom, and Seed Stargazer in the past, and the only one to get a positive review was the one that Mitsuo Fukuda didn't fucking work on. Fans of Gundam Seed lost their damn minds over the negative reviews, with some threatening to kill me, which was hilarious, and some trying to pretend that they're Japanese just to feel culturally superior, I guess? What do we call this? It's basically the weeaboo version of blackface. Regardless, today, we're talking about a show that is my argument that Mitsuo Fukuda, director of Gundam Seed, is not the creative powerhouse that people try to pretend he is. Today we have one of the edgiest, most ridiculous series ever in regards to anime that proves to me that this guy is not someone to be taken seriously as a creative powerhouse, especially among Gundam creators. By the end of this, you're going to be looking at your screen going, wait, people compare this jackass to people like Tamino, Hideaki Anno, Shuko Murase, Ryosuke Takahashi, or Shinji Takamatsu? Really? Because this guy is a fucking hack. You see, the anime that we're talking about today is obviously not Gundam, and it's obviously Ange. This is a show that made me wonder if even Reddit would defend this trash, and goddamn if the bar couldn't be set any lower, they do. But trash is the proper term. Well, trashy, to be specific. I was genuinely shocked when I first watched this, because I really wasn't expecting such a goofy, unadulterated dumpster fire to have been featured in a Super Robot Wars game, let alone two of them that I own. You see, the video game Super Robot Wars V is effectively responsible for getting me interested in mecha again when I hadn't really ventured out into the genre in a long time. This game had a ton of great shows in it, but some of the ones that I also don't care for, Ange being one of them. So, where to begin with all of this? Well, I guess we'll start with the premise.
Tonight, you...
The basic idea is that this is set in a fantasy universe where magic and the ability to wield it is a big part of what makes you considered human. So what is it that happens to women that turn out to not have magical abilities by a certain age? Imagine South African apartheid, but crossed with a lesbian porno and having to fight giant dragons. This is where our character of Ange is introduced. She is the princess of a kingdom that I don't care to remember the name of, and when she reaches a certain age, she does not have the magical abilities that the rest of her family does. As such, she is labeled a pariah, and her mother is killed trying to defend her from her potential fate. After that, she is shipped off to what can be best described as the island of angry lesbians. That's the whole setup. Now, there is a plot to this, and I know the gooners among you are hearing everything that I'm saying and already reaching for the KY jelly. So, I will not spoil what happens later in the show, but I will say that there is a plot twist. In fact, we will have a spoiler section where I actually give a few components to the show that I actually liked. Only a few, though. The reason is that I'm going to tell you something that should make you put that KY jelly down. None of these girls are legal. This is part of the reason why I say this is so skeevy. This is part of the reason that I think that the creator of this show is a fucking creep. So on and so forth. My general idea when it comes to art in general is don't sexualize minors. To put it in even more exact terms, if you make minors in your television show into objects to be gooned over and jerked off to, I'm starting to get Roman Polanski vibes from you. And I'm not talking about directing style. The reason I also feel the need to bring this up is that the introduction of Ange to the island of angry lesbians starts off with her being stripped naked and getting a cavity search. And no Vaseline, to quote Ice Cube. From here, there's more than one lesbian sex scene, more than one instance of Ange's muff hitting a dude in the face that is also underage, so on, so forth. On top of that, the uniforms that these girls wear can best be described as stripperific. Not the normal ones where it's basically a coat that is midriff-bearing and a skirt. I'm talking about the ones that they wear while they pilot death machines that are barely a step above a thong and pasties. What's also funny about this is that this show can get really gory at times, too. Now here's the thing, I do not mind gore in a show. I think anybody who's been watching my channel for a number of years can tell you that. I mean, I reviewed Genocyber for Christ's sake. I don't care about gore and sex scenes being in a show. I'm a Berserk fan, for God's sake. I also don't care if there's gay sex scenes or lesbian sex scenes either. I'll admit, I can be a bit of a prude. I think it comes with my religious background, but not so much of one where I think that there's no such thing as a fast forward button if I don't want to be viewing that particular sort of scene, right? The combination of everything being done for their own sake is why I call this show trashy. There's a difference between dark and edgy, and I feel that trashy nature is a big part of it. There's a lot of dark shows that I've highlighted over the years that I've been discussing in the genre of anime that I've given positive reviews to, mind you. In fact, Shirt Dude will probably go ahead and bring up images from a bunch of them right now. Thanks, buddy. But talking about the arts in general, I've done something similar. A dark show, what makes it what it is one that is not ashamed to throw in rather frightening and horrific elements that just show the darkest points of human existence, or human existence within a certain setting. In war scenes, a dark story is not afraid to show people getting disemboweled or brained or anything along the lines of that sort of thing. They're not afraid to show the depravity of human existence, and I'll just use the Eclipse from Berserk as a general example of that. However, a dark show or a dark video game or something along those lines does not do these things simply for their own sake. Rather, these are used to set a tone, and it aids the general storytelling to give the user an idea of just how dire of a situation the main characters are in. There comes a point where you cannot see that particular universe without those elements. I feel this way about Berserk, Gundam, Devilman, and other pieces of media from other places like Garth Ennis's Punisher Max, or a video game like Wolfenstein: The New Order. Thank God there were never any sequels ever made of that video game. Cross Ange, on the other hand, doesn't really gain a whole lot from these elements. In fact, if you simply implied the more deplorable lesbian elements, instead of showing them outright, cut a good chunk of the nudity, and change the outfits that the girls wear when riding the dragons, the show would largely be the same thing, just less trashy. The reason for that is because all the skeevy elements are literally just there for titillation. Now, I have the feeling that someone has probably already shouted at me that there's nothing wrong with ecchi, etc., etc. And, by the way, it is true that I don't enjoy that genre. At the same time, even ecchi shows that I have seen in the past actually made it a point to try to make the titillation central to the plot in a way that makes sense and can actually add to the story itself and helps move it forward. High School DxD is a really good example of this. The whole point is the titillation because of the scenario that has been set up. This is a show that wants to have the titillation, but wants to have all the gross dark stuff too, and all the fucked up shit, and try to make it all happen, but all of the titillation just feels vestigial. Cross Ange doesn't need all of it. The gore, the dire circumstances, they make a lot of sense because you have a bunch of mecha pilots fighting a bunch of man-eating dragons. And the first time that they fight the dragons that you see it actually does a decent job of setting the stakes of the universe. There's really no good reason for the girls to be in such skimpy clothing, it literally does nothing for them, and for us to see such explicit scenes of sex and nudity. Even Evangelion, which has some disturbing sexual moments in it, is able to justify the existence of it due to the pent-up nature and psychological state of the protagonist. It actually fits in. Some of the scenes in Cross Ange that are basically straight out of a fucking porno are there because it's effectively meant for the creator of the show, Mitsuru Fukuda, to get his fucking rocks off. Now, I imagine some of you out there who enjoy you some quality gooning or telling yourself that none of this has stopped you before, so in that case, I suppose I can't stop any consistent customers of the company Tenga from doing what they do. I'm just saying that this is largely the reason why I am so down on this show from the get-go. This is a show that I feel likes to have its edge for the sake of edge. And once again, I'm also going to echo something that I said in a previous video. If you think the reason that I'm clowning on this is because of, well, lesbians, fuck you. I actually don't think that you should remove the lesbian elements from the show. I think there should be implications of the sex scenes, and you would lose nothing. I think the scene where Ange is basically forced to walk throughout the place completely stark naked, you could film the scene from her neck up and lose nothing, so on and so forth. Implication, as opposed to what is blatant, allows the imagination to run rampant, not allowing your audience to have that imagination and simply use it to set a tone of how bad the situation is, as opposed to, again, just having softcore porn in the fucking show, is a much better alternative, because it's much more creative. But Mitsuru Fukuda wanted his porn in this fucking show, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's anything different.
It's called hentai, and it's art.
Now, as I promised, I feel the need to talk about what positives can really be gleaned from the show. If there is one thing that I will say that Cross Ange does very well, it is to have one of the sleaziest and easy-to-hate villains in the entire genre of anime. Allow me to introduce you to Embryo. Now, who is Embryo, you ask? Well, I want you to imagine if Elliot Rodger became an evil scientist that turned himself into a god instead of just being a murderous shithead. Yeah, the main villain of the show is quite literally an incel. Not only that, his whole thing that he wants to do is effectively create a harem that he can mentally control to ride on his banana whenever he wants. So yes, he's an incel god rapist. What makes it worse is that he actually does some dastardly stuff that will make your fucking skin crawl. He even manipulates some of the girls on the island that are trying to be genuinely good people into working for him with promises that he has no intention of keeping. This guy is a rat bastard, and I have to give credit where credit is due. This might be the best villain that Mitsuo Fukuda ever had a hand in creating. He's certainly leagues better than Raoul Le Creuset. Fuck, that guy sucked ass. Worst Gundam villain ever. So this is something that the show has going for it, though. Not Raoul Le Creuset, but Embryo. Anyway, it's also the reason that I think that if they had gone a bit lighter on the Gooner bait, it would be so much easier to take the show seriously and a villain that is this creepy much more seriously. The second thing that I have to say that I do like about this show is that there are some characters that aren't half bad in this beyond their bosoms. I can't find anyone who has anything bad to say about the character of Momika, for example. And I genuinely felt bad for Ursha in this show and the things that happened to her, and again, not just because of her ballistic enhancements. Again, the tragedies that befall these characters are something that I could have taken a lot more seriously without the trashy tone of the show. Especially the idea of being duped into serving such a skeevy piece of trash just to try to protect some children. I'll get into some spoilers here in a second, but just know that this is a show that could have been great. But unfortunately, it decided that rampant lesbian sex scenes and really weird scenes of fetishized abuse were more important than actual plot development. Especially when they don't even show nipple anyway. It's so weird that all these girls are basically Barbie dolls. I am genuinely shocked that this show just doesn't become a softcore porno at times, I swear to God. If this show were to end up on a hentai site, it wouldn't surprise me. Now let's get into spoiler time.
Then you add some legs, throw on a couple of arms, and... Wait a minute. I think I need to start over.
Now, one thing I will confess is that some of the other girls might grow on you in this show if you decide to watch it. In fact, more than one of the girls that Embryo tricks into working for him aren't necessarily evil people. They just had a weakness that was easy to exploit. As such, he manages to get a harem. The one big revelation of everything, though, probably the most important one, is that the dragons themselves are not bloodthirsty, mindless beasts. In fact, the lolly of the crew is actually a dragon herself. Yeah, the dragons are actually shapeshifters that can look like absolutely, completely normal humans. I sort of hinted at this earlier, but everything here is basically a manipulation put together by Embryo. His ultimate goal is control of everything, and all the girls outside of his harem have to band together to stop him. During the course of this, there are some tragic deaths. Some people go from, in wrestling terms, babyface to heel back to babyface, but they eventually do kill the bad guy. In fact, the way the dude goes out is pretty satisfying, if nothing else. And that's basically what Cross Ange is. It is about 80% trashy garbage with about 20% interesting ideas. Oh, I didn't comment on the mecha design. The mecha design kind of sucks. I don't really like it. Anyway, I feel like there was some really interesting stuff here, but about every quote that I read from other people that were working on this show is that it was Fukuda who was the one who pushed for all the really edgy crap. This is why I wonder if in a different universe, that the other staff members without this asshole could have created a cross Ange that was really enjoyable. I mean, granted, I think there is some truth to that, considering Yoshiro Ashino, who worked on this show, did exactly that, because he went on to be an animator for the Berserk trilogy of films. Yeah, so if it's not obvious, I cannot recommend this show. It's just kind of creepy to me. It's sleazy, and the few good things that it does just don't justify its existence. Hopefully now people can start to see why I really don't like Mitsuru Fukuda as a director, or really as a creative force behind fucking anything. This guy has not created anything that I think I enjoy. Not to mention, he doesn't have the ability to put together a story that isn't poorly put together. I mean, everything that he's done might have one or two things that are kind of interesting, but most of it is shit. When he doesn't have a housewife writing for him, his stories go from being Twilight, but with Gundams, to what is effectively a lesbian exploitation series. Even so, I hope at least the review was entertaining for you guys. If you want to support the channel, links for doing so are down in the description. We appreciate all of you. Just know that my name is Big Micah C, your favorite vanilla gorilla, and I will see you all next time.